welcome back to the Spectre Creative channel, and we're doing another story time today. This is going to be part 2 of the Secrets of Grayskull, the original story background concepts created for what was going to be the Power of Grayskull line extension for the 1987 Masters of the Universe line. This is Scott ToyGuru Neitich, and thanks to Tim Kilpin, the writer of these documents, who was my boss at Mattel, I was able to get a copy of these, and I'm glad to share them with you. So last time on part 1, we talked about the original very rough draft where the Rangers of Grayskull, led by Justin, defended Preternia. Today we're going to read the sort of second draft, which is a 4-page document that really dives into the past and even kind of gives a little hint about what we might have seen in the second and third part of the mini-comics. And just as a refresh, so this was the 87 line extension that took He-Man and Skeletor's fight back to Preternia, where everyone was going to get dinosaur mounts, and the Snake Men were going to be at their prime, I guess you could say, and the main hero was going to be Hero, this character, who was featured in the 1987 Mattel catalog. He was meant to be a new star character of the line that would team up with He-Man to defeat the Snake Men and the Horde in Preternia, and only one part of his 3-part mini-comic ever shipped. So this document kind of outlines a first stab at that mini-comic and gives a little hint at what might have been in parts 2 and 3, since it's written as one story, not 3 parts. So we'll take a look at an early iteration of the Powers of Grayskull and how it evolved into the storyline that we all know and love. Okay, well, we don't all know and love it because it never came out, but some of the big He-Man fans do know the character, and he was in classics, so it is a big part of MOTU history. Alright, so pull up your favorite easy chair and we will return to story time as we read The Secrets of Grayskull, Preliminary Story Background by Tim Kilpin, one of my favorite people. High upon a windy hill, at the entrance to the Towers of Eternia, stood He-Man. Hovering before him in her spirit form was the sorceress. She had drawn him here. He knew that, but he didn't know why. You are troubled, He-Man. There's much that has changed recently in Eternia, and I feel you must know the whole story. He-Man followed the sorceress into Central Grand Tower. What frightens me most is King Hiss and his Snake Men. They were supposed to be only a myth, a fable, but they're here, now, threatening Eternia. The sorceress took He-Man's hand. Do you see that light ahead of us? He-Man squinted as he turned to face a brilliant orb of light glowing in the hall. As he walked slowly towards it, he saw the gleaming shafts of steel had formed a doorway into the radiant sphere. I can sense that it won't harm me, but... The sorceress stepped into the light ahead of He-Man. Trust your senses, He-Man. We're going back. Back? Back to where? The sorceress smiled. To Eternia. Eons before you were born. We're in a time machine. Gracefully, the sorceress raised her hands, and in a flash, He-Man was standing on a plain of tall grass. In the distance, he could see great creatures, dinosaurs, lumbering across the land. On a nearby ridge, a band of giants peacefully prepared a meal. He-Man was in awe. It is Eternia. It's filled with all the things the legend has told me. Dinosaurs and giant men, and... He-Man suddenly leaped back. Snakes! A giant rattler lunged at He-Man, but missed. It slithered quickly away. The sorceress pointed to a trio of towers not far away. There, the Towers of Eternia stand, just as they do now, in your time. Here, let's move closer. He-Man and the sorceress came to a ridge that overlooked a small village. He-Man's powerful eyes took in the view. They seem to be a peaceful people. Are they magical? Yes, magicians and wizards, but they use their powers only for good purposes. He-Man scanned the horizon. Suddenly alarmed, the snakes again. Why, there must be thousands of them slithering into the village. And there at the head of them all, King Hiss. He's going to attack the village. I've got to stop them. He-Man rose to draw his sword, but the sorcerer stopped him. "No, you cannot interfere. Not now. Watch." As King Hiss led his slithering swarm into the village, terrorizing its people and destroying all in its path, a single figure walked slowly towards the King of Snakes. He was dressed in a simple dark robe, and he carried a plain wooden staff. "Who is that?" He-Man asked. "His name is Eric, a wizard's apprentice. For many years the Snake Men have dominated this land with a reign of terror, but Eric is leading his people in a rebellion. He will save Eternia from the Snake Men." "But how can an apprentice—" He-Man was suddenly silenced by the sight of King Hiss's skin peeling away to reveal a mass of slithering serpents. With a grand flourish, Eric drew his staff up before him. "Staff of magic light, give me the might!" A bolt of lightning shot forth from the staff, and now, standing there instead of Eric, was a gallant man in brilliant flowing robes. His staff gleamed with blinding light. "I am Grayskull, the mightiest wizard in Eternia." A fierce battle erupted. Grayskull led his people against the invading snakes. He-Man couldn't believe his eyes. "That is Grayskull?" The sorceress turned to He-Man. "Do you recognize a similarity? Flesh and bone do not last throughout the ages, He-Man, but spirit does. And the spirit of Grayskull is the same spirit that is within you. Grayskull is guided by a council of elders. His mentor, Doran, teaches the wizard the power of magic that are hidden in the staff. It is the only magic staff left in Eternia. King Hiss destroyed all the others when he invaded. Now each time Grayskull faces the Snake Men, he has a new magic power to help him." He-Man watched the battle closely. "Just like Man-at-Arms teaches me. Grayskull is a skilled warrior." Sorcerer smiled at He-Man. "It runs in the family, I'd say." As the battle continued, giants rolled down from their lairs in the mountain to join the fray on both sides. Sorcerers pointed to the strongest of them. "He is the leader of the giants who defend Grayskull. His people perform mighty feats that cannot be accomplished by magic. And over there," sorcerers pointed to robotic, giant beasts that were stalking into the village, "there is King Hiss's legion of evil giants." He-Man pointed to another spot in the valley where a herd of creatures was massing. "And the dinosaurs, they too are part of this horrible war?" "Yes, many dinosaurs were driven from their lairs by the Snake Men. They have come to the aid of the Wizards of Might. But King Hiss has forced several of Eternia's most vicious dinosaurs into serving him." He-Man rose again. "I just can't stand by watching. I must help." But just then, Grayskull struck down King Hiss with an awesome blast from his staff, and the battle was ended. The Snake Men were retreating. Again, the sorceress took He-Man's hand. "There will be times when you can help. The time machine will always be open to you, and you can aid Grayskull in his struggle. But remember, this is his battle, not yours." He-Man looked distressed. "Can I not even tell him that he will finally defeat the Snake Men? I know that he succeeds. It's part of our legends." "You must never tell him. To him, you must be only a stranger from another world. Let him teach you something about battling the Snake Men in your own world. That way you will help each other, and you will ensure the survival of Eternia." He-Man looked down on the valley as Grayskull once again, as Eric tended to his people. "He is so brave, so powerful. Now you know the secret of Grayskull, He-Man, and you must guard it and cherish it forever." He-Man and the sorcerer prepared to go forward in time. There was another who had discovered the glowing light in the central tower. He reached for it haltingly, then withdrew his bony hand. Slowly a weak smile spread across the face of Skeletor. "As I suspected, a time machine. Now where do you suppose this leads?" And that is how the preliminary storyline ends. So you can obviously see it was written as one story, not three, and it looks like the great secret that He-Man was going to learn in the original mini-comics was that he had to learn from Hero how to defeat the Snake Men in his own time. And that probably would have been revealed in the third issue that was meant to be part one of three. Part one of three is the only one that shipped. So that's probably how those mini-comics would have ended, with He-Man learning that and then using the Central Tower time machine going forward to go back and forth to Preternia to both learn from Hero and help him defeat the Snake Men. And that is the end of Storytime. If you like this video and you'd like to see more like it, please give it a like and a subscription. It tells YouTube to share this with more people, and I thank you for that. See you next time.